It was COVID. E-com sales on average 10x'd. We sold out our inventory in a week in most cases, and sometimes in a few days. So
the issue was the forecasts were wrong because people were receiving all these stimulus checks. They were getting free loans.
Exactly.
People were buying Bitcoin. They're buying anything they can. They're getting credit. It was a huge bubble. Money ran out after a while, and people went back to shopping retail as soon as COVID was over. So welcome guys, welcome back again to the FreedomVest Podcast. Today, I got Raz Malas, co-founder of D1 Brands and Talent Hackers. We're going to be learning a lot. Raz, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me on, Jacob. Appreciate it.
Give me a quick background intro, your story. Let's talk about how you founded or how you got into D1 Brands and like what you're currently up to.
Yeah, absolutely. Graduated college, had no idea what I wanted to do with my degree. And I actually started selling on Amazon in college. And after college, I learned about these Amazon aggregators. And so, you know, the market was growing fast in e-com around COVID, as you know. And I learned about the roll-up strategy, which, you know, and what we did was we acquired a bunch of Amazon private label brands, which I already had experience building. And we rolled them up into one organization and scaled them with our internal teams and grew it that way. So very interesting, a bit different than being like an individual Amazon seller because you're dealing with like 50 different brands and thousands of SKUs and a huge team and a ton of overhead and debt and investors. And so
let's dig into that for a bit because D1 was pretty big back in the Amazon aggregator days. I remember back in my Amazon days, it was you guys, it was Thrasio. How much did you guys raise? And this was post-COVID, right? We're talking about like the golden era of Amazon back when this was a huge thing. So how much did you guys raise? How fast was this? Like, tell me how, like, just tell me, because this was probably really exciting times when you were building this.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty wild actually to see the numbers, but we can talk about the good side and the bad side. And I'd love to dig into both. The bad side to me is more interesting. You know, it's all nice and dandy when sales are skyrocketing during COVID, but we knew that there was going to be a normalization of that. You know, what goes up comes down, right? And so what was it like? I mean, it was crazy. It was madness. It was like a land grab between the aggregators. Everyone was trying to acquire as fast as possible.
At any multiple.
At pretty much in the industry, yeah, like at any multiple. It was pretty insane. Thrasio themselves was acquiring brands at 2x when they started, when they pioneered the whole thing, and they were acquiring these assets at 2x.
And they're gone now.
Yeah, well, they're not necessarily gone, but they had to restructure their debt. I think they filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy and then had to restructure their debt. But they're still around. They did mass layoffs. For those that don't know, basically, I mean. Yeah, like
give us the background, because I obviously lived it, but probably a lot of people listening to this might have not lived it. But it was crazy. Give us a little bit of background on what exactly happened in this industry, what went on, and probably lessons learned. Because honestly, I think it's a huge lesson for anybody getting into business on how you just really need to be, like, you can't just follow a trend and be blindly just executing. Like, there are probably lots of lessons that you learned from all this.
Ton of lessons. So for the viewers, most people have heard of Amazon sellers. There's a lot of these individual Amazon sellers that can build multi-million-dollar brands on Amazon. The aggregators, like us, we went out to acquire these assets and put them together, and hopefully, you know, seek out more value through roll up and efficiencies, right? So there were probably 50 plus aggregators at one point, and the multiples started at 2x, like I mentioned. They went up to as high as 6x and 8x in some cases, which is pretty insane. But and that's 2, 3, 4, 5x multiple on the profit. And so, you know, what happened was it was COVID, and e-com sales on average 10x'd, but in some categories like literally 50x'd. So I remember when we were selling, like, we had brands, you know, typically we hold about 90 days of supply between in FBA, in transit, and in production. We sold out of our inventory very, very quickly, like in a week in most cases, and sometimes in a few days. So literally, like we had to like increase prices to slow down demand, and we couldn't do that fast enough.
These were the brands you were acquiring.
These were the brands we were acquiring and the products we were selling on Amazon. Pretty much the entire Amazon, it was actually at the peak of COVID, it was actually hard to find products to buy on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Like it literally, like you see empty shelves physically at retail stores. That's kind of what it was like online.
So how many brands did you guys have at that time, and like how much money had you raised? And was this debt? Was this a promissory note? Was it a equity? Like what was this like investor stack on the raise?
Yeah, the magic number was $123 million is what we raised in total. About $100 million was debt and $23 million was equity. I don't even think we used the full $100 million of debt. We used about half of that to acquire the assets. And yeah, that's what we did.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the return on the debt side? What were you offering investors? Was it a 10% straight debt? Like,
yeah. So in the industry, because it was so new, the debt was actually very expensive. And I think our debt was, I don't even know if I can share, but yeah, I mean, the industry average was around 15% for all the aggregators.
okay.
If you want to get a construction loan for real estate, you're talking 6-7% construction loan, right?
So really expensive debt.
Very expensive debt. And the reason is because banks don't know how to underwrite.
It's risky.
It's very risky. And so the debt's expensive. And that was okay. The numbers made sense when we were paying 2-3x multiples. At 6x, they don't really make sense. Our average multiple, I think, was around 3x. So we were pretty,
conservative
and diligent about what we were doing and disciplined. And so what happened was a lot of these aggregators were hiring a lot of people ahead of the growth, which is what companies do when they're in the growth phase. They need to hire ahead of time to ensure that things don't break. And when you see the numbers like this, you're like, oh, wow, we need to staff. We need to buy more. And so this bubble kept building and building and building. And what happened was, and this is the bad side, people were underwriting in their acquisitions that they can sustain this level of demand, even if it went down 50%. But in many cases, it went down like 70%. Every brand was different. Every category was different. And so what happened was people stocked out because supply chain was terrible at that time during COVID. I don't know if you remember, but to get inventory from China, it took 6 months instead of 3 months because there was a container shortage. And when there was a container shortage, the freight container cost 10x as well. So something that was a 1% line item on margin.
Didn't we get to like 20 to 30K container prices? It was something crazy, dude.
These container costs were like $2,000 for $2,000 to $3,000 for a full container to ship from China to the US. It became $25,000, $30,000 to ship from China to the US. And not only that, you had an additional 3-month delay than what you're used to.
Yep.
So you had these inflated landed costs for this inventory that you're getting. Everyone was also over forecasting demand. And so now you're filling up these containers that are like 10x what you're expecting to pay. And you're doing it because you don't mind, because you think you can sell it at a high price because the whole market was crazy.
That was the consensus, right? I remember being in the MDS, the $1 Million Seller Group, where it was all 7-figure sellers. I remember people were talking about inventory being king. So not cash. Inventory was king. And everybody was talking about how nobody was going to go back to retail. How Walmart and Amazon, even the big guys themselves, like Walmart, was buying huge amounts of inventories, thinking that they could sell all this via e-com, via their online store, because people were receiving all these stimulus checks. They're getting free loans.
Exactly.
People are buying Bitcoin. They're buying anything they can. They're getting credit. It was a huge bubble, and people are shopping like crazy. But the issue was the forecasts were wrong. Money ran out after a while, and people went back to shopping retail as soon as COVID was over. So I got badly hurt for ordering way too much inventory at that time, but then also buying it at the wrong price, because now I have what normally was a landed cost of $10, maybe $20-$30, and now anybody that's coming in ordering or restocking, they're now restocking at the normalized price. How do you even compete, right? So huge lessons there, man.
Exactly. And then everyone kind of got their inventory at the same time, and then the price compression happened in the market. And then basically what happened was everyone was overstocked because demand faded, and everyone was overstocked with expensive inventory. So margin compression occurred simultaneously with high, all this inventory that's expensive, and then people are also, don't forget, paying way more than they expected to pay on overhead costs because they hired so many people ahead of the growth, like I mentioned before. And so mass layoffs occurred naturally. Oh, and don't forget, people still had these interest payments in our space, in the aggregator space, since we acquired these businesses with debt, and we had these 15% money
promise returns.
So I mean, it was pretty hard to weather the storm, but I think we were able to weather the storm. We didn't go bankrupt, and we're still around today. I think we were able to do that because we were able to hire talent offshore, and that's why I'm so bullish on offshore talent, and why I'm building talent hackers now is because these big companies, when demand does spike in any industry and you need to hire support to sustain those levels of growth, I think it's best to just go offshore for many roles, or at least use offshore talent for support roles for your U.S. labor. Because you're gonna have So that's why I'm building talent hackers, to help other businesses grow without breaking the bank.
Yep. And
I saw it firsthand, like Thrasio, for example. They hired literally thousands of people, and they had to lay off thousands of people.
Yep.
Think about it. On average, every U.S. employee probably in New York is about $100,000 a year, and that's on the low side, honestly. But for Thrasio, that's probably what they were paying, $100,000 a year. And then you have, payroll taxes, then you have benefits, and you have all the overhead costs, their equipment costs. I mean, so it's a lot of money. But when you hire offshore, you're literally saving 80%. And you can sometimes, in many cases, like for Amazon particularly, I can hire brand managers offshore for, $30,000 a year.
Yep.
And the US, if you want to hire a brand manager, it's going to cost you $80,000, $90,000, $100,000. These days, who knows? And you can find the same quality of talent offshore than you can in the US.
Yep.
I mean, we were talking about you, and your content lead is offshore, and she does everything and makes your life very simple. Yep. And you have systems and processes in place. As long as you know how to manage a talent, then it's an incredible situation you're in.
So unless I need to have U.S. employees because maybe they're running my properties, right? A property manager, a maintenance guy, cleaning crew. I can't hire that offshore.
For sure.
But unless it's strictly needed to have a U.S. employee where I need to be paying them more, I hire everybody strictly from either Colombia or the Philippines. Now, advantages of the Philippines is for my nighttime shifts, now for real estate, for property management, nighttime guest messaging, they're really good because when it's nighttime in the US, it's daytime for them. So I can have people 24/7 on my properties. Now, the really big advantage about hiring in Colombia is I don't call them VAs. And I don't know if you do this with your team. Like, they're my team members. They're not virtual assistants. I literally go to dinner with them. They are highly educated with master's degrees in finance that help me do underwriting, that have underwritten millions of dollars worth of properties that have worked for they even have experience working for U.S. companies underwriting millions and millions of dollars in real estate with the finance master's degree. And I'm hiring these people for a fifth or a fraction of the cost. They're super hardworking. They are incredibly smart. And you get all these other efficiencies. So unless it's really needed, like, I really do not hire in the U.S. And again, really, really incredible business model that you're doing here, because that's the way to really scale efficiently. Like, you don't need a waste. And maybe a little bit of a tangent, but during those Amazon days, before you tell me about talent hackers, there was a lot of waste. Not only were they hiring lots of people from the US, but it was good for us as sellers. They were treating us to events full of lobster, yachts. It was crazy. Like, I remember these days, like, we were going on these yacht parties that were paid by all these aggregators.
Really?
And they were paying everything. And we were getting treated to lobster, drinks, unlimited, paid by them for being in MDS. And I'm not going to mention their name, but it was so much waste, dude. It was, you could see the writing on the wall from a mile away, if this wasn't going to end right. So glad you guys are still alive, and glad you're doing this other venture. So yeah, tell me a little bit more about Talent Hackers and what you guys are focusing on right now.
Yeah. And by the way, music to my ears, what you just explained, this is what I try to teach people. And it's great to be sitting with an entrepreneur that is leveraging the offshore ecosystem, really global talent. And, you learned how to build systems and processes to create automations with your team. And that's a beautiful thing about living in this era. We're able to build these large digital businesses that puts us in the top 1% of the world in terms of, income. And we're able to do that by leveraging offshore talent. Even if you have a business idea that's pre-revenue, you can leverage one full-time dedicated international contractor employee embedded into your organization, whatever you want to call it, and start on that new project with support from day one. Most businesses in the US, they don't have support from day one. They got to wait until they're doing at least $1 million a year to justify a full-time hire in the US. Otherwise, the math just doesn't make sense. And so thank you for putting it the way that you did, and lovely. So talent hackers, what was the question about talent hackers?
Yeah, just what do you guys do, and like where are you guys hiring from? Yeah. Maybe tell us like what systems do you have to actually find the right people? Because I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs get it wrong, and they might hire somebody from the Philippines one time and they have terrible experience. I've had that when I first started hiring
absolutely.
In the Philippines. I think at some point I was like, I'm just never going to hire from there again, but I just didn't have the right systems, the right processes to find the right people. But when you're able to really find in each of these markets the right people, like there's amazing people all over the world.
Absolutely. And so talent hackers right now, well, first off, at D1, we hired over 150 people from Pakistan, Philippines, South America. There's a lot of Amazon talent in Pakistan and Philippines. Right now, for Amazon talent, we still hire from Pakistan, but for pretty much all other roles, we're actually hiring out of Africa, primarily Nigeria.
Really?
And it's really, something that we stumbled upon just through research and data. My co-founder and I decided in Nigeria. First of all, we're the first movers there, but they've proven to be some of the best talent that we've ever hired ever. My partner has hired 400 people from Philippines, by the way. And I've hired 150 between Pakistan and the Philippines. We've already hired about 50 in Nigeria, and these 50 people.
Okay.
And they've been incredible. They've been really amazing. Their the native language in Nigeria is English.
Okay.
There's about 250 million people in Nigeria, and
what's their accent like though? Is it could you use them? I guess hiring comes down to like what you really need in terms of, let's say, cold calling, right? If you're cold calling in the US trying to get real estate deals, anywhere in the Philippines or India is going to put off Americans. Yeah. So for those roles, maybe Colombia or Venezuela are right, but is this like a all size fits all? Is like Nigeria for everything, or is it more like if you're hiring for these specific roles in Nigeria, and is there a process that you guys are looking at, whereas different countries fit different stuff?
No, right now, Nigeria, it really is one size fits all, except for the Amazon talent that I was mentioning. But for example, yesterday, I got a client who needs a cold caller for his real estate business.
Okay.
I have another client that we already placed someone for who hired a sales team of 3 of cold callers for small business financing. He's based out of Manhattan. He's got an office on Wall Street. So absolutely. The first thing that we vet for is that accent. Now, of course, there is an accent. There's also an accent in Colombia. There's an accent in South America. Even in the Philippines, there's sometimes they have an accent. But so you vet for that. And the way that we have a rigorous hiring process to ensure that we vet for that properly. And some roles aren't really like client facing, like cold callers. Some roles are like, developers. They don't need to be client facing or talking to anyone. They need to communicate. So
even like devs and everything, you're finding success in Nigeria.
Devs are one of the best types of talent that we find in Nigeria. Nigeria is very tech enabled, and in the government, I think people are going to start hearing about Nigeria a lot more in the next 10 years. By the way, the government is investing in Nigeria, and their plan, they're investing in infrastructure and education, and their plan is to be the #1 outsourcing hub by 2027 over the Philippines. There's a quarter billion people there. And guess what? This is my favorite stat about Nigeria. The median age is 20 years old. Why is that? if you go on Google and you type in population growth in Nigeria, in the last 20 years, they doubled their population, which makes the median age of the people there 20 years old. So you have a very young, tech-enabled, hungry population that's highly educated, and they're only 5 hours ahead of the Eastern time zone.
Okay.
Which is big because if you're hiring from the Philippines, your role obviously makes sense because you need someone around the clock. But if you're working 9 to 5 Eastern and you hire someone in the Philippines, they need to overlap with those working hours. It's tough for them because they have to work throughout the night, and there's a lot of churn that comes with that, and mental issues, of course, from that town. And we've seen a lot of churn historically because of that reason. But with Nigeria, we can maintain that 8-hour overlap.
And you said they're like highly educated, like you're talking about like good colleges, they're doing masters, or what? Oh yeah. To what level? Like, are they masters, doctorate, everything?
Masters. And not only that, we're finding no one knows this, but a lot of the Fortune 500 companies have satellite offices set up in Nigeria. And so we see a lot of these resumes of, candidates with experience at these large companies like Meta, Google, Microsoft.
I hadn't heard about
a lot
Nigeria
of these consulting companies too.
That's crazy.
Neither have I. And we were kind of like, this is what have we stumbled upon?
So how did you stumble upon that?
Well, my partner Kyle, he, again, he's hired from a lot of different countries, but he was able to he did like a deep research and looked at various different factors and compared all the countries and the people in them and was able to understand like what the next big thing is, and we see Nigeria as this like emerging offshore market.
Okay.
And so we just looked at a lot of data, honestly, and then we launched a few job requisitions in various roles and interviewed as if we were going to hire, just to see resumes and understand what the talent out there is like. And these people, they go above and beyond, especially when they get an opportunity to work for a U.S. company, because we're paying them well above their market rate, and they're more than happy to work for a U.S. client because they're building their resumes as well. They're extremely loyal. They follow directions. They're also
are they independent thinkers? Because what I found a lot of people in the Philippines, they're not independent thinkers. You need to give them an exact SOP to follow.
Exactly.
Because they just want those guidelines. Now in Colombia, for me, they are individual thinkers, and they'll actually, which I love, they'll actually tell me when they think there's a better way to do stuff, and I actually appreciate that a lot. So I guess what I've found through all my years of hiring all over the world, I've had people from Africa as well. I've had Philippines. I've hired developers in Pakistan. I've had people from India. Is culture is a big thing in this, and they're all very different. Now, for me, I've found a lot of culture fit from Colombia, and that's why I love hiring from here. But I'm guessing there's a very unique culture in Nigeria as well. How would you describe them in terms of culture? And after we talk about culture, I want to maybe do a small brainstorm session. I want to hear what's your hiring process from start to finish, how you source the leads, what tests they take, and then I want to give you as well how we do it and see if there's ideas we can feed off each other.
So it's really interesting what you said about the Philippines, right? So that term VA, right? We don't like it. Virtual assistant. That's basically like a task rabbit person. Like, just there's a robot that you tell what to do it like this, and don't veer off. I want this done this way. You actually honestly have to manage them a lot more. It's actually a lot bit more difficult to find efficiencies with VAs.
Exactly.
And then the Philippines, again, the culture there actually like supports the VA function because, they want to just be told what to do, how to do it, and that's it. They don't want to think outside the box. Okay, Nigeria, it is totally different. Now, just for the viewers, we only hire full-time dedicated workers. They work 40 hours a week embedded into your organization and your organization only. When you hire a VA, they typically have other obligations. You're paying them hourly. They're not focused just on you. We hire full-time members as if they're a member in the U.S.
So we're calling them employees then. You're not a VA like staffing company like a lot of these.
They're essentially full-time employees. I can't, we hire them as contractors, in terms of paperwork, but they are technically full-time employees if you want. So, culture-wise, they think outside the box. Let me give you an example. I have 10 people on my team right now. Me and my partner and 8 other people. They're all in Nigeria. I have a content lead that I speak to. She's my executive writer. What I do with her is we have 2 calls per week. The first call, she interviews me. She asks me a bunch of different questions around entrepreneurship, my personal life, fitness, any other interests I have.
You're like, wow, what's going on here?
Literally, she puts out 20 questions.
Yeah.
We get on a call. We have the AI note taker. She's also taking notes, and it's recorded. I answer all the questions. I read them and I start talking. Just like when you create content. And then she takes that information, okay? And then she writes LinkedIn posts and Twitter posts in my tone and based on what I said. The second meeting in the week, we review all that content, and it's 5 pieces of content. So we have content for the entire week for LinkedIn and Twitter. She does the same thing with my partner, and that's all she does. And she's incredible to deal with because her English is perfect, and I feel like she understands me. She learns a lot about me. She's curious.
You might need to give me a couple hours of her time.
Yeah. And then she went out of her way and found a website called podmatch.com. Okay. And I was going to tell you about this before, but basically she went out there and scheduled a bunch of different podcast hosts to interview me. And so now I have all this additional content.
Podmatch, you said?
Podmatch.com. This is how I told you I lined up all these podcasts for these last 2 months.
You're holding the nuggets, man.
Yeah, but I've never been on podmatch.com. My team has done that proactively. And that's the other thing about the Nigerian talent. They're so proactive. And
I love that.
They think about how we can grow this. They understand the plan. We need to bring attention and awareness to our services, build my personal brand along the way, along with my partners. And they're trying to figure out various ways to do that.
What do you think about like a personal assistant or an executive assistant from Nigeria?
We've hired a few executive assistants. They're great. They are great for all the same reasons.
Awesome. So walk me through the hiring process. How are you guys advertising to them, right? After you advertise to them, they find about your job or whatever position's open. What's your filtering and screening process? And finally, hiring and onboarding. If you want to walk me from start to finish, what that looks like.
Hiring, obviously, because we're a staffing agency, we have a lot of systems and we have a process and a system to follow, and we have to. For someone new that's looking to hire, they may think it's easy. You have to understand what questions to ask for your particular role, where you're going to find these people, how you're going to screen the applicants, how you're going to get the key information from all these applicants that are coming in. We figured out how to do that in a systemized approach. But to start, hiring can be simple. I wouldn't say easy, but it could be simple. It could be simplified, but you need the systems. But what it definitely is time consuming. It's extremely time consuming. No matter, you can't cut it in any way. You can't take shortcuts with it. It is just time consuming. You have to speak to people and you have to find the talent that my clients need or that you need for your own organization. So what we do is we post on LinkedIn. We also post on Indeed. We also have an ATS, an applicant tracking system that posts on various different job boards and centralizes all those applicants when they come in. We also have the ability to apply to our jobs on our website. So we have to take let's say we post a job for an executive assistant. First of all, we're probably getting between 700 to 1,000 applicants for an executive assistant.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a lot of unemployment in Nigeria or?
Not necessarily.
Or just huge labor pool as well.
It's just a huge labor pool. I mean, there's 250 million people there, and everyone's jumping at the opportunity to work for a U.S. business. And we just pay way more than the average. So everyone's looking at.
What's the salary range? Let's say your content girl or personal assistant. What are you seeing in terms of rates?
So it's pretty consistent with what you see in other countries, like in the Philippines and in Colombia. It's not really that much different, but it's still very affordable relative to the U.S.
So
market.
We're talking anywhere from $500 to $2,000 a month.
Exactly, and that varies based on the type of role that you're hiring for and skill level, experience level, and so it really does vary. There's a range. Developers are typically more expensive than an executive assistant, for example, because they're more technical. And so That's how. So we have to screen through the 700 to 1,000 resumes manually.
Mm-hmm.
We literally manually have to go through them. That's very time consuming. And then what we do is we ask them, if we like them, we ask them to take a internet speed test, a personality test.
Which one?
It's called for the personality test, it's the Ocean.
Ocean?
Yeah. It's like open. It measures openness, conscientiousness, and then a few other things I'm forgetting at the top of my mind what it stands for, but Ocean.
Okay. So we use the PI test, predictive index, and then it tells you like what type of personality they are. So are they a captain? Are they a controller? Are they a maverick? And you can get a lot of insights just through personality. So we found that there's just a couple, like 2 or 3 really good personality types. Everybody else, you just exclude if they don't like, if they're just not going to fit. So you can get a lot of insights from just that initial personality test, which takes like 15, 20 minutes for them to take.
Yeah. Not even.
Super fast.
You can see if they're an extrovert or an introvert at a glance. And then you take that personality test and you look, and then we have them submit an introduction video. They answer on Loom, yeah. And I have 5 questions. I'm like, answer these 5 questions, record yourself, make the video no longer than 60 seconds because we have to screen hundreds of applicants. And we see their personality test and we see how they speak and how they carry themselves, how they present themselves, what their video quality is like, what their audio quality is like. Are they in a work office, a work from home office? Are they in a, what are they like? What's their vibe? Are they monotone? Are they more upbeat? In various roles, you got to look at these things. If you're looking for someone that's client facing, for example, you want to find an extrovert. If you're looking for a dev, him being an introvert is okay as long as he's got the technical skills. And so we can get a lot of information just up to that point before we even have our first round interview. And then if we like them, we select them. Then we do a first round interview. We ask more still basic questions. And then we do a technical interview after that with myself and my co-founder. And and then that's how we handle the interview process. And then
have you read the book Who?
Who?
Yeah, it's got like all the hiring, like interview questions and this process or methodology where basically you're asking very specific questions about their previous work experience. And how it works is you want to ask them first. You want to see that they're not what are they called? They're not jumping from job to job. Like
job hoppers.
Job hoppers. So the first thing you want to do is like, how long were you at each? So you take the resume, you start asking, okay, how long did you work here for? Right? Then tell me your major accomplishments. And then you ask them, when we speak to your boss, first, what's the name of your boss? They give you a name, you write it down. Okay, so once we speak to your boss, how will he rate you in a scale of 1 to 10, right? And he gives you a score. Anything above a 7, they were really bad because they're not going to give themselves a bad, like a bad score, but you telling them that you're going to speak to their boss already puts them in the framework that you're going to be getting referrals. And then you ask them, can you put us in touch with each and every referral? And I think big part of hiring, which everybody always does last, is start with referrals first. Like ask people that have worked with them how it went in the real life, because a lot of people can wing an interview. A lot of people can sell themselves in an interview, right? But it's going to be hard for them to really, if they're legit, like references are probably huge. So this Who methodology, like the book's amazing for anybody listening. If you really want to get good hiring systems, like they're legit. And now with AI, like you can even upload the resume into like ChatGPT and ask them to like evaluate if they're actually job hoppers, take their interview questions, take their personality, give it the job description and ask it like, is this a good fit? So like with AI, like there's a lot of like automations you can do. But yeah, coming back to like what you guys do when you're on the interview, like what exactly are you screening for?
Yeah, so we definitely do for reference checks to the extent that we think we need to. But so the first round interview is different than the second round interview. The second round interview is more technical.
Got it.
So but we're hiring for various different roles in the e-com sector, but also a lot of tech companies, SaaS companies need developers, for example. Marketing agencies need digital marketers. We've hired bookkeepers, cold callers. So every single interview is unique, and the technical questions are unique. But the first round interview questions, we are asking these questions, more about understanding themselves, how they think, what if they're a good culture fit, trying to evaluate if they're job hoppers.
Your culture fit's huge. Are you actually, like we, for example, we have a screening question just for culture fit. One of our core values is Kaizen, which is constant growth and improvement every single day. And what I'll ask every single candidate that wants to work for me is 2 questions. What was the last book you read and when? And what was the last course you took and when? And if they say, I don't read or I haven't taken a course in years, I'm not hiring them, because unless I see people that are constantly trying to grow, that for me is huge. Like, that's my culture DNA. So if you're not a learner, if you're not growing, I don't want you as part of my company.
Yeah, that's very good. I like that. Yeah, I mean, top of mind. So the way that I look at it is, first of all, I'm dealing with my client. I'm also dealing with the candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And in the US, we have a particular way of thinking and a particular culture. I mean, but we also are very diverse. Yep. Some people are like, the New Yorkers are very like get stuff done, hard-headed. But then you find someone from like, California who's a little bit more laid back, right? So, it's just different. It also depends on the generation you're dealing with. Like I'm dealing with a client who's 60 years old.
Yep. Versus
a client who's my age, out of college, like within the last decade. It's just different. So yeah, I mean, but generally speaking, Nigerian culture is very pleasant to work with, I would say.
Okay. Receptive to feedback, or they don't get feelings hurt when you give them feedback?
No, they really don't. And I'm not just saying that because I'm biased, but like I genuinely feel that way with my team members. I have these 8 Nigerians and I'm internally in my organization right now that I work with every single day. And maybe it's because I've learned how to manage them, that they love working for us at Talent Hackers, or if they're just generally I think they're just genuinely like that. And they're very happy people, which is actually very important if you're talking about culture.
Super important.
And they like to learn and they like to move forward. Like my executive writers love to read, to your point. I'm like, what do you guys do on the weekends? Oh, I'm just going to read and go to the park. Okay. So, and they're family oriented people as well, which is very big for us. And yeah, we just treat them right. And, we don't micromanage too much. Earlier on, we try to build these systems and processes so that we don't have to micromanage, and then things become automated. We do have recurring meetings with all of our employees, my partner and I. He handles my partner handles half the business. I handle the other half of the business.
Are you guys running on either Scaling Up or EOS or any of these systems?
No, we're actually not on EOS right now. Well, actually, it's funny. We are. I'm just lying. We started on EOS, but I guess we don't practice it now today. You mentioned that we don't practice it daily or weekly, but we built like an EOS scorecard, for example, and we track KPIs using the EOS scorecard. So that's to the extent that we use EOS.
We love the weekly L10. Yeah. I don't know if you guys ran any of those meetings, but it's so efficient. Just going through 5 minutes of like what you're grateful for, but then going through your rocks and like what the objectives are. They got to read them every week and tell you if they're on or off track. From there, you're looking at issues and discussing if there's any issues, right? You have a KPI or scorecard, what they call it in EOS, that you're checking to see their metrics are on track. And then finally, you're reviewing like the to-dos for the week, but in less than 45 minutes to an hour, like that's enough for us. And like for me, I have 3-4 meetings every Monday, and that's really enough to set them on track for the week. So we found just having that weekly 1-hour call using the L10, or there's also the Scaling Up methodology of meetings, super impactful.
So I ran EOS at D1, and in this digital world, things are evolving. EOS is great. I don't want to downplay it. We use the scorecard. We track KPIs that way. But I will say that meetings are necessary, especially in the remote environment. But I've kind of gotten to the next level of managing offshore employees.
No meetings?
No. Meetings. Okay. We still have recurring meetings, but I have recurring one-on-ones, I have recurring stand-ups, and I have recurring one-on-ones with all my direct reports and recurring stand-ups basically. But just because it's on the calendar does not necessarily mean you need to go, attend that meeting, is my point. Now, because we have a lot of things going on, and sometimes we're all in a flow state and maybe we don't need a meeting.
Is that you, or you don't expect your employees to show up for a meeting that you have scheduled?
No. It's I also want to be conscious of their time and what they're working on. So if they're working on something that I know it's important, there's a deadline for it, and we have a lot going on in the company, I actually sometimes would be like, I think it's more productive if we don't have a meeting. Let's finish what we're doing. And instead of doing the meeting, let's write out what we have on our plate and what we've accomplished in Slack. This way you avoid a 30-minute meeting where you're kind of just like, oh yeah, I'm not a time waster. I try to optimize productivity as much as possible. And that's all I'm saying.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, that's critical, like productivity. That's why we just keep it to like literally once a week. So we do that, but we try and eliminate any other meetings, because really you don't really need to be wasting so much time. And I think Elon Musk famously did a tweet, or there's an email that leaked by him. It was awesome. What he wrote was, to all his employees, first, if you have anything to say, don't follow the regular chain of command. Like, go straight to the manager or the source and handle it. There's none of this like bureaucracy. Like, just as efficiently as possible to get the communication.
Get on the call. Why do I have to wait until the meeting that's scheduled tomorrow to get an answer? No, I want Slack huddle me, WhatsApp message me, call me, Slack me. Let's go. Like, enough of time wasting.
And then second, he says, if you're in a meeting and you're not adding value, it's okay to walk out of that meeting. You don't need to stay on a meeting if you're not adding value. Don't waste your time, and don't waste anybody else's time. Just walk out. So.
I did that this morning. Literally. I was like, hey guys, this call is recorded. You guys ask questions, connect after the call. I got to hop.
Awesome.
And then I came here.
Oh, dude, this has been awesome talking about hiring. But before we wrap things up here, I want to talk a little bit about mindset. And if you have any specific routines or stuff that you've had scaling these super successful ventures, but also there's always the downsides. I know me as an entrepreneur, yourself, like both of us, like it's not always roses. Like we have issues, and like for me, I think mindset's probably the most important thing over skills. Like if you have mindset right, you're gonna navigate well. If you have the best skills but a terrible mindset, you're not even gonna do it. So is there any specific things that you do, routines and just mindset stuff that have helped you navigate your entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, I really love this topic, honestly. We can dig in here if you'd like. There's a lot of small things, it's not like there's a lot of cliche things on the internet that you can get. I don't want to say the cliche things. I want to talk about my personal experience and how I deal with things. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I faced setbacks in this company that I'm currently Town Hackers. We faced setbacks a few months ago where it feels like the world's crumbling, but then I have a partner who can like pick me up. And then I think to myself, okay, I can't control that thing that happened, but I can control what's about to happen next. So I think that's a big thing for me. It's like knowing what I can and cannot control. If I cannot control something, I don't even think about it. I just try to do what I can control. And then I always think about trying to get 1% better every single day. Kaizen. Honestly, dude, 80% of the work is showing up. Yep. That's a cliche thing I'm saying, but it really is true. Just showing up. Like, most people don't even want to show up. It's just like the
crazy.
The bar. The bar is so low to compete with the people here these days. Everyone's, and also it's important to know that like whoever uses social media is vulnerable to instant gratification. Mm-hmm. Instant gratification is like literally the devil.
Yep.
If you can prolong your gratification as much as possible and just have a little bit of freaking vision, man. Stop thinking, about today. Think about next year, what you can do in 5 years. If you just have that understanding, that basic understanding, and it's not even an understanding, it's actually people just need to be reminded. And so if you can figure out a way to remind yourself of these little things that actually are important, you can stay in the game longer and you can beat everyone else. Right. You don't have to win tomorrow, man. I don't need to win tomorrow. You see a bunch of winners on Instagram all the time, man, this guy, it looks like it's overnight success. So it's hard. And you're like, damn, but it's not true. And my dad taught me something like the most valuable lesson he's taught me. It's not even a lesson. he just calls bullshit on a lot of things. Like, if someone's like waving money around, he'll just be like, I smell bullshit somewhere. That's bullshit. So use that word bullshit to your advantage, man. Like, most things out there that you see are bullshit. Smoke and mirrors. That's all it is. So focus on yourself, stay true to yourself and your process and your path. As long as you do that, bro, like, you're going to probably be in a good shape.
I love that, dude. You just said so many stuff on that it's like going to be hard to like even unpack, but starting with social media and how much bullshit there's out there. Like, I hired a personal brand director and a marketing manager that just manage my social media, and I try and delete the app as much as I can. Now, it's hard, of course, like, but I'll be 30, 60 days without social media and life is fine. Like, life doesn't end. Everything's perfect while my personal brand's still being built, but I don't need to be hooked to that because that's instant gratification. And like you said, success comes from those daily micro habits repeated consistently throughout the years. And that's the Kaizen principle. And amazing book that talks about all this is Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits,
like,
about to say.
You follow that, like, you'll have success. You don't need to go and run 50 miles one day.
Yeah, you don't.
Take that 10-minute jog, but do it every single day for a year. Read 10 pages. At the end of the year, you would have read 20 to 30 books. And that's what I do. Like, last year I read 35 books and it wasn't this hard achievement. People are like, wow, you read all those books? Dude, I just read 10 to 30 pages consistently every single day. And that's all I did. I'm not different from anybody else. But like you said, people just don't want to do the small stuff. And they want to focus on, how can I make 10 million tomorrow without doing any other work?
That hurts you. It's anti-productive. Like, people who want to lose weight, they'll go to the gym and like do the hardest workout ever. They haven't gone to the gym in like 2 years. I'm like, what the heck are you doing? You're going to feel sore the next day. You'll be like, oh, this sucks. You're going to feel like crap. You're dehydrated. You're not prepared. Like, what I tell people who are trying to get into the gym, because I'm very big into fitness too, just go to the gym and show up, even if you don't do anything.
Put your workout clothes on and just go there.
Go there. And I even tell them, go to the gym every single day. Don't do anything for the entire week, but go every day. Just go. You don't know what workouts you want to do? Great. Go to the gym. I don't care. Go to the gym.
Just show up.
Don't even work out. Please. I'm telling you, do not work out. Go to the gym. Over time, you're going to be like, oh, maybe I'll try out this machine. Oh, maybe I'll just walk on the treadmill. Okay, great. And then guess what? After 21 days, you've built that habit. And now if you don't go to the gym, it feels weird. It's part of your routine. For me, if I don't go to the gym for like 3 days, I start to feel like something is wrong. Like, because it's such a habit that's engraved into my daily life. And like, without it, I just feel different. I'm not flowing the right way. I'm not as productive. Like, there's like a mental strain on me. I'm moody. I have to go to the gym personally. But I've only been able to build that over the years I've been going to the gym. I can't build that in a week. You can't,
I think as long as you have 3 daily wins, which comes down to fitness. So as long as you walk, jog, just do some exercise. It can be light exercise, right? That's your first win of the day. Then it's a mental win. So read a book, right? Read 10 pages.
Talk to someone.
Watch a YouTube video. Talk to somebody. Listen to a podcast. Just get some information into your brain. Just 10 minutes, right? Win number 2. And then win number 3 is your spirituality. So for me, it's meditation. Meditate 10 minutes a day. Do my gratitude journal. Write down my goals. For other people, it might be praying. Whatever works for you works, So as long as you have those 3 daily wins, I would consider that a successful day. And if you repeat this throughout a year, your life is going to really be transformed.
100%. People overestimate what they can do in a month, but they underestimate what they can do in a year. And
patience, discipline, and just time. Put in the reps.
Just do it. Just get in there.
I love that, dude.
Yeah.
I love that. To shift it a little bit, I always like asking every single guest that gets on this podcast about freedom. And we're big on freedom. Obviously, that's the name of the podcast. It's FreedomVest. It's living a life by design. So if I were to ask you, I know freedom means different things to different people, but what does freedom ultimately mean to you?
There's a lot in there. I love this question. This is great. Personally, I personally believe that we live in a very unique time where if we were just born 100 years ago, we would have the same lives as all other humans had over the last few thousand years. But we're so lucky to be in this era where we can build a beautiful digital business that's fully automated, and you can actually buy back your time and spend it doing what you love. And for me, I like to explore new cultures and travel. I also am very, very big on family. And I also have other interests like fitness and health. And so, freedom, we all talk about being slaves to a 9-to-5 job. I just feel like in this day and age, you're just doing yourself a disservice if you can't figure out how to live your life otherwise. But maybe you're okay with that. And maybe you have certain responsibilities that you're anchored to, and that's fine. But me personally, freedom means not having liabilities that are anchoring me to one geographical location. And I want to keep it that way. Eventually, it may be kids, and I can't do that. Yep. I'm still pretty young. I know that. But that's what freedom means to me. Being able to do what I want, when I want, however I want, with who I want.
I love that, dude.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better. And before we wrap up here, what are 3 books that have been instrumental for your success, mindset, whatever it is, dude? Just 3 books that on the top of your mind you would say like, wow, these have really been game changers.
Atomic Habits, number 1.
Yep.
The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson, and How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Love those. Read all 3. And also you mentioned Buy Back Your Time. You didn't mention the book, but that's an incredible book, dude. Like talk about a book, man. Dan Martell, incredible. And I follow that like my Bible. Like my executive assistant right now is reading that book, and I'm like, stop wasting my time. Like you need to really read this book, and because I need time. Like I'm buying back my time so that I can have the freedom and I can live my life the way I want to, and also enjoy time, because I think life is not just about work. Like work's a big part of it, and building incredible business is a part of it, but we're all just as a human, like we just have all these other affinities that are important. You can't just take too much care of business and then not your health or your relationships. Like it's all got to be like the spoke of a wheel. Like they all got to be in line if you want to live a truly successful and happy life, right?
Absolutely. Being in the top 1% is not just being in the top 1% financially. I don't want to be in the top 1% and unhealthy and fat and unable to do things with my body, and depressed or with bad relationships. No, they all have to work together in order for you to truly be in the top 1%, in my opinion.
Amazing, dude. Yeah. So how can people connect with you, man? This has been awesome. You added so much value. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be having a lot of questions around hiring, or maybe engaging you guys for some Nigerian amazing employees like you sold here. So what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter, or X, and Instagram at Raz Malas, RazMalas. Hit me up that way.
Awesome, dude. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks for having me on the podcast, bro. Appreciate it.
It's been awesome, dude.